Yes, sir.
Hi, I've enjoyed your presentation very much. Thank you for it.
Thank you. You're very kind.
2.5 years ago, my agent auctioned a book that I had written. It was a collection of true stories. And to his surprise and to mine, no one offered anything. But he did send it out to all of the major houses and the important smaller presses. It was disheartening, and I've spent the last 2.5 years rewriting the thing. I'm now calling it fiction, and you know, but it's better by far than it was 2.5 years ago. It is the same title, and you know, I've been thinking and thinking and thinking, how am I going to approach all of these people who already turned it down? I mean, how am I going to I don't even know how to begin to do that.
Okay, well, let me ask you this first. Do you still have that same agent?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Our relationship was over when
Okay. Okay. So, and are you suggesting that you would pitch your book directly to a publisher?
I might.
Because most of them today, to be honest with you, will not accept unsolicited manuscripts. So you must go through an agent. And it's just, as you can imagine, the deluge of manuscripts that they get. I could walk into any editor's office today and not be able to see the floor for the number of manuscripts that are sent in manually, and that doesn't even include all of the online submissions that they have. So what I would really suggest for you first is to seek an agent. You'll have a lot better luck. And I would also tell them that, you know, a little bit about your experience prior, and you've taken that experience and you've improved upon the material, and it's to the point now that you're, you know, somewhat confident that somebody out there is going to want it. But I would also want to know, in the past 2 or 2.5 years, what you've done as an author to build your platform. Are you speaking? Are you writing articles or essays? Do you have a website? Are you contributing somewhere online? Are you blogging? All of these things, and I know all of these words are very familiar to all of us, but it's really come to light in a very predominant way in the publishing industry in the last year. And so much so that if our authors don't have a website, we insist that they have one. If they don't have a blog, we insist that they have a blog. They have to have a page on Facebook. They need to be tweeting. All of these little things, and they're all free. I mean, you can build a website for nothing. So if you don't have any of those things, I would definitely suggest you start there and start developing your friends and followers, and look online. You know, you can do a search in Twitter and in Facebook and all the other social networks, but those two are the big ones now. And I think Twitter is actually bypassing Facebook. But you can go in those online social media outlets and do a search for your specific topic of interest and find people who would be interested. And then start building your campaign sort of before you put the book out there. Do you know what I mean? So like for me, for instance, I've been looking and searching in Twitter and Facebook for writers and authors and writers' conferences. And I've just been doing it, you know, in that search bar on Facebook and Twitter. And so now I'm following a lot of these people, and now they're following me. And it's wonderful to be able to support people that I don't even know and answer their questions, you know, directly. And so imagine what you could do with now your fiction stories based on fact, right? I mean, you might even get people who know what you're writing about. They were there, or they read about it, you know, when it was happening. It could be really interesting to start building that platform.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure. When you're talking about your platform, are you also talking about target marketing, or who are you trying to? What do you mean by that? I mean, I have an idea in my mind about marketing and my target market and how I want to go about it. Small little ideas, you know. But when you're talking about platform, what are you talking about?
It's a really good question, and it's actually just a buzzword in the publishing houses. What we look for are authors who have a platform, and what that means to us is kind of the things that we've been talking about. And it actually does go back to relationships. Do you, as an author, have a relationship with anyone in the media? Do you know anyone that is a newscaster, depending on what your book is about? Do you know anyone who writes for a magazine or a newspaper? Do you have any of those connections that you can call up and say, hey, you know, my book's coming out, would you interview me? Would you have me on your show? So that's one piece of it. Do you, as an author or a writer, are you out there speaking anywhere about your topic? You know, attending conventions or conferences or expos, are you considered an authority on what it is that you are talking about? If it's a fiction book, then it kind of runs the same gamut, although fiction is a little bit harder. I don't like to say a lot harder. I think it's, for me, it's pretty neck and neck, but there's a different way of approaching a platform from a fiction writer's perspective. But it still comes down to those relationships. So do you know anybody in the media? Are you speaking out there? Do you have local community connections? Are you a member of the Chamber of Commerce? Do you connect with your local merchants? How about your public library? Would your public library invite you to speak about your book? Would they offer their space for you to have an event? All of those things tell a publisher that you are worth looking at, if you will. And then it goes to, you know, a more extension of your platform would be, besides who you know, what can you do? Can you speak? If you can't speak, would you be willing to be trained to speak in the public or for an interview for television or radio? It's about creating that cooperative environment. Publishers look for authors that are willing to do just about anything to sell their book. Again, going back to the competition today, it's really rough. We have, believe me, I've had a lot of authors that come to the table and say that they know people in the press. They've spoken at, you know, lots of different conferences and conventions, and they feel confident that that will be happening when their book comes out. Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't. And what happens with those authors, and not to segue, but it kind of reminds me of some of the disasters that happen in publishing, from the publishing side of things, that the author makes all these promises, and then they don't come true. So then what happens for you as the author, you've already gotten your advance, the books have gone out, but you will never, the publisher will never make your advance back. And so you've burned a bridge. So whatever it is that you say you can do, be sure that you can. And also be willing and open to being trained to whatever it is that they need you to do. I mean, a fiction author, particularly a children's author, really needs to be comfortable in telling stories and interacting with children. Well, if they've never done that, how do we know that they can? Does that make sense? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.